So boom, check me out. I've been watching esports for almost 10 years now, and there are a ton of players that I respect to the absolute maximum. From Arsenal, Sonic Fox, Fallen, Mango, I could just name like a ton, but check me out though. There's only one player that ever stayed at the absolute top of that list for me, and that would be Counter-Strike's infamous AWPer, KennyS. Now even though he isn't a top player right now, he's probably your favorite AWPer's favorite AWPer if I'm being honest. In fact, he was so good that he pretty much invented the aggressive sniping playstyle. We'll get into that later, but first let me set the scene. Now, Kenny's older brother already played Counter-Strike, so he got into it at a very young age of 6. And according to Kenny's brother Cyril, by the time Kenny was 8, he was already just as good as him and the people he played with. But if we fast forward, we can get to where it's a little bit more interesting. Now, at some point, Kenny started playing on some community servers, and according to everybody he was playing with and against, the kid was nice. A lot of people in the community started to notice him, and though he was obviously better than most people in general, he had one thing that he was just leagues ahead at, and that was the AWP. Now, when he was asked about this time in his life, he dropped a pretty hard line. He said it was hard to pinpoint exactly where he started to pick up the AWP, but he said it was more like the AWP chose him. Now, if you ask me, that sounds pretty insane. I'm just not gonna lie. That just sounds pretty insane to me. But let's continue on. I guess he was just so good that his talent was just uncomprehendable to the people on these servers. Bro just kept getting banned over and over and over again on all these community servers.
I was playing FFA and I was getting banned from AWPing servers.
But after getting banned so much, he decided to go to ESL, which was a more official platform that had a large community that gathered their own like teams and stuff like that. But Kenny's favorite part of ESL was their 1v1 AWP ladder, where he actually got on and sought out the top 10 players and then beat every single one of them without losing.
And I went on ESL. Back then ESL was a really big platform of gathering leagues and that kind of things, you know. And you know, like what was turning me on back then, it was like, yeah, 1v1 AWP ladder. I'm gonna play against the 10 first best and beat them, which I did. I was like 15-0-0, and then I was like, okay.
Now, these allegations were so strong that it wasn't until he got picked up and trialed by an actual pro team that he could prove these claims false. Yes, it quite literally took him playing in front of an entire crowd to be proven innocent in this case, which is, once again, insane to me, but I digress, and we're gonna have to move forward a little farther. Now, at this time, CS Source and 1.6 were both actively being supported by Valve until 2012 when Counter-Strike Global Offensive finally came out. Now, this actually was a problem because Gaben made this nice announcement telling all the players, hey, we're not actually going to support these old games anymore. Everyone has to move to Global Offensive or just suffer. That's pretty much it. Now, Kenny really didn't like this announcement considering he just started picking up traction in Source. Though, ironically enough, this was actually the best thing for his career. Now, originally I was going to talk about his results and how he played on like teams and things like that, but I realized this video ain't about that. This video is really just about how he became the GOAT of the AWP. So let's get straight into that. Now, at the start of CSGO, Kenny was actually not that good. In fact, he stated that his manager was better at the game than him. That was up until his first LAN event where he miraculously became the GOAT. Now, I'm not going to lie. He immediately proved himself in this first clip.
That's it, and now it's only KennyS remaining. Huge headshot onto Kenny. Oh,
about to run directly into each other. Kenny gonna pick up the advantage.
At least he proved himself to the audience. Some other pros actually did not want to play with him because his playstyle was not really fit for a team. Though, that didn't exactly matter to him. He kept playing his own game, which pretty much forced the people around him to become more confident within his ability. But this guy was hitting clip after clip on every team possible. He was absolutely dominating the game. I mean, this nigga was literally so good that teams had genuinely no idea how to beat him. I mean, they literally had to change the entire way they played every single round just to beat one guy. I mean, that shit is just outright diabolical. I mean, you could literally tell from the other team's positioning that they just absolutely feared this guy. He was absurdly aggressive and he was beyond unpredictable. And I feel that that fear that they had actually gave him more of an edge than they expected because he wanted to peak. He wanted the enemy's numbers to dwindle as fast as possible, especially in the clutches that made him the infamous name that he is today. Now, there is just one more feat that we have to talk about. Before we get into that, we need to quickly break down what made him actually such a good player. Where you wonder where he actually invented this playstyle, it would actually be all the way back in Source. Now, obviously, when you're that young, you don't really understand too much about the standard way to play a game. So while all the older people he's playing with is trying to play the correct way of Counter-Strike, sitting there holding angles, you know, trying to peek correctly, the little guy is just swinging you with an AWP for no reason. But there's just something else that we haven't talked about, and that would be his explosive ass movement. Say you're slow walking, holding an angle at headshot level, then this guy just fucking jumps up on a box and hits you in the head for 100,000 damage. Or let's say you're in a tense situation, trying not to make your position known, and then once again, he's just swinging and quickscoping you for absolutely no reason.
The quick shot versus electronic. Oh, another!
This was KennyS's bread and butter. Just quick scoping and be able to react and flick at a much faster rate than pretty much everybody else at the time. But you know what they say. If you can't beat them, just let Valve nerf the fucking weapon. Yep, that's exactly what happened. And I believe March of 2015, an AWP nerf dropped. They toned down the speed of movement while you're scoped in with the AWP, which would go on to heavily affect someone like KennyS, who has always had the muscle memory and this idea of being able to swing and quickscope at a certain speed.
But the way it affected me is that this AWP, for example, was really made for me, like really like fitting my game style 100%, you know. It took me like 2 to 3 months, okay, to perform again.
Which pretty much absolutely destroyed a lot of his muscle memory. While there was also a lot of aggressive AWPers that were very affected by this as well, people genuinely believe that KennyS is the cause of this nerf. It just seemed like it was so targeted at him specifically that people simply called it the KennyS nerf. But don't get it twisted. He didn't simply just fall off the face of the earth after this. While there were other AWPers that seemed to adapt to this way easier, and some even seemed to surpass him at the time, it did not stop this guy from winning more majors and hitting more clips on your favorite teams.
What's the reaction? Need another out of him. They're coming in, and Kenny racking them up too. Need a third, and no scope for style points. It's not safe yet. S-Attack to fall, and Kenny's the one to send them.
The fast pushes from Titan have been called and found out, but there's KennyS with 2 and a third as well, and a 4th. Unbelievable play from Kenny.
For the action, Kenny first at the bat, he finds a shot, but he's being pressured up close. He needs Shucks to support him. He's watching for a flank, but what? Oh my God, Kenny gets an incredible kill against Sixer. I didn't even see the flick. He hits that shot somehow, and it's another round for G2.
Because KennyS. Oh my God, KennyS with 3 insane kills